and welcome to another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes.com, with me as your host, Chris, very honoured right now, McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me today to discuss his incredible work, including one of the most innovative and beautifully designed toy lines the world has ever seen, is the absolute living legend, Palitoy god, and generally lovely human being. Yes, you guessed it, Bob Brechin. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. On this very special episode, we have an interview that has been far too long in the making. Joining me to discuss his groundbreaking and iconic work on numerous lines, including, most appropriately for this podcast, Action Man and Action Force, is a Palitoy legend and all-round fantastic chap, the amazing Bob Brechin. Thank you so much for joining me for this interview, Bob. How are you doing, bud?
I'm doing quite well. I've just been playing football.
Oh, wow, nice.
You're supposed to be walking football.
Oh, does everyone cheat? Does everyone...
Well, we do cheat, yeah. But when you're in your 70s, running's a bit difficult.
Mate, that's impressive. That's impressive. The last time I played football was in the UK, probably about over 2 years ago, and I have to wear like knee straps and ankle straps and all sorts, and ice them down. So the fact you're doing that in your 70s, that's putting me to shame. Anyway. Let's first off, let's get into your background prior to Palitoy. Were you involved in toy design before that job?
No, not really. No, I did a course in industrial design at Birmingham.
Oh, right.
Aston University. And then I was working for about 6 months for a company that made door furniture, like window catches and door handles, and so I was sort of designing things like that. And then I saw an advert in the paper, the national paper, for a toy designer in a place called COALVILLE.
Where were you living originally before then?
Before then, I was living in Oxford. I was born and bred in Oxford.
Okay.
I went off to college to Birmingham when I was 18.
Right. And then so this job popped up and caught your fancy and you were like, right, let's give it a try.
It seemed to be a bit more exciting than designing door handles.
I can imagine. Did you take any of the door handle inspiration into the stuff you did in the toy arena?
Not really. I did do some drawings for an automatic door, which probably would have looked right on the bottom of the Robo Skull.
Oh, nice. I'm actually going to be looking at all of the stuff you've designed now, looking for any door handles on anything. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, okay, I suppose it was a bit of a strangled route getting into toy design. Clearly, was it something you'd always wanted to do, kind of in the background? I mean, I know you hadn't kind of seen it really pop up before, but seeing as it caught your attention, was it something you'd ever really even crossed your mind as a child or growing up at all?
Not really. I didn't have a lot of toys when I was a child.
Oh.
I remember a cowboy outfit, and I had a bike, of course.
Yeah.
I didn't have any like dinky toys or Matchbox toys or whatever. My cousin, he was a bit better off than me, had a lot of those, so I used to go play with them.
Yeah, but was it something as a kid that you actually enjoyed playing with when you went round there?
Oh yeah, because it's the sort of thing I didn't have.
Yeah.
But when I was working in Birmingham, I was sort of designing little sort of characters in plush.
Oh, no way.
So I just got into doing that and giving them away as presents. And then, as I said, this job for toy designer came up, so I applied for it. I sent in an application.
So how did the interview go? Did you remember it? Was it a good one?
I didn't have a car at the time, so I had to catch a train to Leicester. Then catch a bus.
Oh.
Went through all this beautiful country, which is the Charnwood Forest.
Yeah.
When I jumped off the bus, there was this great monolith of a clock tower standing there. And then I walked across the road, and there was all these people down the other end of this road with black faces, and they were all coming out of the coal
mine. I see. Yeah.
So I went across the road, and there was a pub there with coal miners coming out of it. I asked somebody, "Where's this company Palitoy?" And it was a bit of a grim place because it was all covered in coal dust.
Yeah.
But me being a lad from Oxford.
Nice and clean.
Yeah, nice and clean, and and I thought, well, what have I come for? But the interview really went well with Bill Pugh.
Oh, brilliant.
And then it was a few weeks later that I got, the offer of the job.
And what was the first thing you did when you were kind of? I take it you had to move to COALVILLE, or did you commute initially?
I moved to Leicester. I started off about 3 weeks in the YMCA.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Just to get my feet on the ground in Leicester, and then I took on a flat with another guy who was the photographer at the museum.
Oh,
the
wow.
museum we met at.
Yeah.
So we had a flat together. So I was there for a few years, and then I went to another house share with somebody, and then I decided to move to COALVILLE and buy a house.
And what was the first thing you worked at Palitoy?
First thing I worked at was some pull-along animals on wheels.
Nice.
Like I had to design the decoration. So there was a giraffe, and I had to do the decoration to go on it, and a zebra and things like that.
That's amazing.
So the first Action Man thing I worked on was the American personnel carrier.
Nice. Yeah, because obviously that had started the year prior to you joining Palitoy, was it?
Yeah, I joined in 67, and of course Action Man came out in 66.
Yeah.
And then in 67, 66 was just the figures and the outfits.
Yeah.
But in 67, when I joined, they were taking these vehicles. There were 3 vehicles. There was Jeep,
Yeah.
a scout car of some sort, and this personnel carrier. And they couldn't get it to fit in the box. And my first job was to reassign the wheels so that the wheels didn't stick out from the front of the superstructure of the craft, or the vehicle.
Yeah.
So that was my first job on Action Man.
Just incidentally, when you got there, you were aware that Palitoy were the company that dealt with Action Man? Were you aware of Action Man, and was it something that was on your radar?
No, not having a clue about Action Man. I mean, I wasn't really looking at toys,
of course,
in the shops.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on. And of course, I was working in, I just finished college in the end of 66. So that's just after Action Man came out, basically. I wasn't really trolling around...
like I do nowadays.
Yeah, like you do.
I'm probably what the age you were when. What age were you when you started at Palitoy? May I ask?
I think I joined in the 1st of June, so I've been 22 at the end of the month.
Oh, you were way younger than I am now.
No, 23. 23. Yeah,
23.
of course, 23.
23 and never been kissed.
Wow, I had a few of them.
My dad always says things like that, so yeah. That's awesome. So you, again, like at 23, I was definitely patrolling the toy aisles. So that just shows you how different the I suppose the kind of the generations kind of were around those times. It's funny because obviously I grew up with Action Man and Action Force and G.I. Joe and so on and so forth. So I have that nostalgic connection to it from a child kind of era. I suppose you have a different respect for these particular brands because of your involvement in creating them. I mean, is it a feeling? Do you still have a nostalgic feeling for it, or is it more of a feeling of kind of like pride that you've worked on it and so on and so forth? Sorry, that is a killer question that I did not give you beforehand.
Nostalgia. I mean, I go to all these Action Man conventions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just been to that one with Alan Dawson.
Oh yes.
Which he held at the Palitoy factory, of course. So there's that nostalgia, and it's nice to know that it's still going, and I'm contributing in some way.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a strong feeling towards the brand? I know that's a stupid question because obviously you must have, but it's just interesting to me to know kind of how you feel about it. Is it something that like do you collect any of this stuff?
I've got a few pieces, but I don't collect it. I mean, it was a job, wasn't it? We didn't think that this stuff would be collectible when we were designing it and producing it. It was just a job, Now it's so collectible. And if I had thought about it, I'd have a garage full.
Like me. Okay, with the Action Man line, what was your normal day-to-day process? Was it a case of you have a meeting and then you just set to work, or was it like a constant evolving kind of situation where you're working on things? Take us through like a normal day kind of with the Action Man brand.
Well, when we first started, of course, I was still sort of just coming out of college, a bit naive and a bit sort of idealistic, I suppose is the word. Yeah. And sort of war toys was a bit sort of at that time, with Vietnam and stuff.
Yeah, a bit controversial.
Go area, Of course, the name Action Man meant he can do other things than just be a soldier.
Yeah.
So that's what I got into first, was getting involved in designing sports outfits and adventure outfits. So we'd perhaps sit down and say, well, what can we do? What sports can we do? Well, football, obviously.
Yeah.
So we'd sit down with marketing and say which teams we're going to do. And on the adventure side, rock climbing was a good thing. I went down to see the rock climbing society in Leicester to get all the details about pitons and carabinaires and that sort of stuff,
That sounds like quite an exciting job, especially with the research element. I mean, now it's like you go online, you go onto Google Images and you get your research that way, but this is far more in-depth, in person, and kind of a bit more kind of Indiana Jones kind of style, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the Arctic Explorer, for instance, they just I think the British had just got to the South Pole on one sort of expedition, and I contacted that group and got details from them, and then designed the sledge for the sledging dog team. You know,
Amazing.
my boss, he took a bit of clay home and he sculpted the dog that went with it.
That's amazing. So who were you working with at the time on the Action Man brand? What was the kind of...
It was just me, really, on the Action Man brand as a design.
Wow.
The other person there when I joined was a chap called Stuart Moore, but he was a doll designer.
Right.
He was the chap who designed Tiny Tears.
Yeah.
And, designed lots of dolls, sculpted them and so forth. And there was another guy called Bert Sharman.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't really a designer. He was just more of a tinkerer. And he used to tinker with mechanisms and things like that.
Was that his official title?
Yeah, the tinkerer. Yeah, and he didn't last too long. We had another guy come in who actually was a teacher, and he came in. He lasted about a year.
Yeah.
But on Action Man, it was basically me doing the design work in conjunction with marketing, who wanted the idea, sort of contributing to the ideas, and they knew what the market wanted.
There was a connection there with Hasbro, wasn't there? Do you know how that collaboration came about? Was that down to like a Toy Fair meeting?
Well, yeah, because only the week before last, we went to interview Bob Simpson, who was managing director at Palitoy.
Brilliant.
During the 70s, and he was telling us all about the start of Palitoy when it went over to General Mills.
Yeah.
He started in Castleoid, which he used to be, Castleoid, in Leicester, with a chap called Miles Fletcher, and they were given the task to make the Palitoy brand, as it was then. It wasn't a company, it was a brand of toys for Castleoid. They were given the task to make it a good brand.
Yeah.
So what they did, they got Tressie, the Barbie type doll with the growing hair.
Yes.
That was from an American company called the American Character Doll Company.
Right.
They also got Tiny Tears from there.
Yeah.
And then Stuart Moore, he redesigned it completely.
Yeah.
And then they didn't have anything for boys. And Bob was telling us how they got wind up of G.I. Joe in America. So they went over to the Toy Fair and got in touch with the Hassenfeld.
The Hassenfeld brothers, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Merrill Hassenfeld, wasn't it? Merrill.
Yeah.
Got in touch with him, and they, after a long story, really, they decided that they'd take a license and do it over in Europe.
You also were quite important in the innovations that they took on board on G.I. Joe as well. So
yeah, precisely, yeah.
Take us through some of the things you developed on the Action Man brand, like the one of them was the gripping hand, wasn't it?
I keep telling this in my talk I do on the history of Palitoy.
You've probably gone over this a million times, haven't you, Bob? I'm so sorry.
Well, Action Man was a big part of my talk, obviously. And I would say that with toys, you get a good toy and it sells in the first year. It levels off in the second year. In the third year, it starts to tumble a bit.
Yeah.
So you need ideas coming in all the time.
Yeah.
So the first idea that came in, obviously, was the Talking Commander.
Yes.
Which Hasbro did, and they put a voice unit inside Action Man's chest. So we took that, and then in 1970, Bill Pugh, or it must have been 69. Because we bought it out in 70, Bill Pugh was sitting watching Tomorrow's World, which is a programme on BBC.
I know it well.
And he saw this process called flocking.
Yeah.
And he got the guy in, who was a guy called Peter Connaughty from a company just down the motorway, the M1 from COALVILLE. And he drove into the car park in a car which was covered in different coloured blue flock.
Amazing.
And he got out the car and he came into the office, and I was in there with Bill. And then he got out of his, it must have been a suitcase, a tea set, which was covered in all different coloured flock. Cups and saucers and teapot. And then Bill's got an Action Man head, and he held it up and said, "Can you put hair on him?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Yes, of course I can." So he went off and he came back with the process of doing it.
Amazing.
And of course, then Bill phones up Don Levine, his sort of opposite number at Hasbro, and said, "We got this fantastic idea. Must have." Their engineers flew over and had a look at the process and went back and put it on. But the real story about that, is they got it wrong.
Really?
Hasbro, yeah. Their resin that was painted onto the head before the fins put on.
Yeah.
They used a rigid resin.
Right.
And it should have been flexible resin. So when the kids squeezed the head, the rigid resin cracked and the hair fell.
I see. Amazing.
The marketing guy at the time, who was in charge of Action Man, a chap called Nick Farmer, he was in charge of Action Man on the marketing side. He was a bit worried that we got it wrong.
Yeah.
So he stuck an Action Man head on the gear stick of his Mini. and he drove around.
That's amazing.
Changing gear with this Action Man head.
Oh my God, that is brilliant.
He said afterwards, I did 50,000 miles and it never came off. So he said, you got it right.
That is awesome. So, okay, so flocked hair, and Hasbro took that on board.
Yeah.
What came next?
Well, 3 years later, because of this sort of 3-year cycle of, going up and then leveling off and going down. So 3 years later, and this is serendipity, really. Bill Pugh, we used to go to the toy fair, all the designers, because we were supposed to be creative people.
Yeah, you're supposed to be.
Supposed to be, yeah. So we used to go to the toy fairs in Brighton, and we'd dress the stand so it looked good.
Yeah.
The stand was all put up by the contractors, and then we'd dress it with the products. And Bill Pugh used to come down, roll up his sleeves and join in with us and have a bit of fun,
Yeah.
And we'd work right through the night to get it out. He was trying to get Action Man to hold his rifle, and he couldn't do it. It kept falling out.
Yeah.
And Brian Turner, who was display manager, said, we just use a bit of Evo stick and, put the rifle in, it stays there, Bill. And Bill says, no, it wants gripping hands.
Amazing.
So when we got back to COALVILLE, I was tasked to, sculpt the gripping hand based on my left hand.
So you did that, and obviously that was something else that Hasbro took on board as well, wasn't it, for their own?
Yeah, same thing. Bill contacts Hasbro, contacts Don Levine or whoever, says, we've got another idea for you. They flew over, and they did it. Of course, what do they call it? They called it the flipping
Kung Fu grip. Yeah, that was what. Well, I guess that was the hot thing at the time, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it, for the films, wasn't it?
Yeah, it makes more sense to be the gripping hand than it does the Kung Fu grip. But again, it's all like shiny and pizzazzy, and what can grab kids. Yeah.
I suppose on the packaging with the Kung Fu grip, and of course marketing liked these ideas because first time they. On the box, they'd put a big flash saying, now with realistic hair. And then 3 years later, now with gripping hands. And then pictures of him climbing up or holding things. Yeah, so that's how it worked. Of course, what happened next, Hasbro didn't want to be left out, did they?
No.
So they came up with the eagle eyes.
Okay, so that was a Hasbro development.
Yeah, I mean, they only used that for 1 year, didn't they?
Yeah.
They stopped the 12-inch after that.
Did they do the sniper neck type thing as well with the little bit on the neck, or was that done way beforehand?
Oh no, that was later. That was ours.
Okay, so that was after the fact, was it?
That was in about 1979, 80, something like that.
Because I remember my first Action Man was the blue pants one with the little Action Man buckle on the pants, and it had the thing on the back of the neck. And it had the eagle eye, and it had the flocked hair, and it had the gripping hands. It was like the perfect Action Man at that point.
You got the Adam's apple.
Yes.
So when you push the head back,
it locked in.
It clicked over the Adam's apple,
yes.
so that when he's lying in the prone position, he can look down his rifle.
That was it. It's on the front, isn't it? Yeah. And it was just, I had so much fun with that. It also came with I think I had. Either it came with, or I got the uniform separately, but I can't remember because it was like, it was literally as I was born. But it was the black parachute gear with the. It also had like it had the helmet as well, the kind of pilot's helmet too.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I absolutely loved that thing. Played threw it out of the window so many times and had that really kind of hardcore heavy duty parachute with it as well. It was just brilliant.
Well, the blue pants Action Man, of course, that's when we redesigned it from the original Hasbro design, which has got rivets in the knees and so on.
It was a great design. It's still I still have it to this day, and it's still in full working order. Those
original tools that we used for the original riveted Action Man, based on the Hasbro design. I mean, they'd moulded millions and millions and millions of Action Men.
Crazy.
And they were wearing out. And the problem was that it was what was called a family tool.
Yeah.
Now, a family tool is where you put everything on the same mould.
Yeah.
All the parts for the legs and the arms all went on the same mould.
Yeah.
So when you moulded it, if one of those parts wasn't moulding properly, essentially that whole shot was no good. So what it meant was you had to separate everything.
Yeah.
And put all the good pieces on one side and the ones that weren't moulding right on the other side.
Yeah.
And then try and make up figures that way. And of course that was quite expensive messing around. And also they were trying to save the parts that weren't very good by sending them out to outworkers to open up the joints.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was a decision then to redesign it. We decided to redesign it in about 1977 and it came out in 1979.
Yeah, because I was born in 1980. So I would have had. I think I had that figure pretty much around that time, or early 80s, definitely.
Well, yeah, because it finished in 84, so you'd have been about 6, wouldn't you?
Well, I would have been 4 in 84.
4 or 5.
3 or 4 in 1984.
Oh, would you?
Yeah, I was a 1980 baby. But so with Action Man, with all of the things that you worked on the Action Man brand, because there were if you were the only person on it, there were so many things that you ended up doing.
That was at the beginning. As we got bigger, we took on more designers, and we took on a guy called Ivor Edmonds.
Okay.
He did most of the work on the new figure, the blue pants figure.
Yes.
He did most of the sculpting and design work. We worked together, obviously, but he was sort of tasked with that job.
Sure.
And then we had another guy called Merle Evans who came in. He did some work on Action Man. And then he moved on to mainline railways.
Oh, wow. Out of all of those items then that you worked on the Action Man brand, what was one that is your favourite? What's the one that you're kind of the most proud of from the Action Man brand?
Well, the ones I really like are the ceremonials.
Yeah.
Which is started off with the Grenadier Guard.
Yeah.
And then the next one was the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders.
Yes.
Now their regimental museum is in Stirling Castle in Scotland, and Bill Pugh, his wife is Scottish, so they went up there. A bit of a jolly, I suppose.
Yeah.
He went up there and
for work.
He went up there, and he came back. And he walked into the office dressed in the kilt and everything. That's
amazing. That's amazing.
And then it was passed over to me to make it into an Action Man outfit,
Yeah.
And then from there it went on to the Household Cavalry, which is the lifeguards, which are the ones red, the silver helmets.
Yeah.
The gear. And then the Blues and Royals, which have got the blue tunic and the silver helmet. And both he and I went down to their barracks in Whitehall in London.
Wow.
Which backs on to where they do the Trooping of the Colour.
Yes.
We were entertained there by the commanding officer in the officers' mess. We went all around the photograph and everything, and they gave us 2 full sets of uniform to take back to COALVILLE.
That's amazing.
I had to sculpt everything to send out to Hong Kong to, reproduce it as an Action Man outfit.
That's so cool. From when I've discussed these kind of things with a lot of the Hasbro designers from back in the kind of 80s, a lot of them were doing pretty much all rounders. They were designing things. They were mainly they were there to kind of draw something, but they'd end up having to kit bash something together to show off as in a pitch or something. Did you ever have to pitch anything to Palitoy, or were they basically just giving you the direction to make this stuff? Or did you go to them and say, we should do this uniform, we should do that uniform? Was that ever the case with you?
It was a bit of both, really. A lot of it was doing sort of a colour drawing of an outfit.
Yeah.
Another guy who joined later, in the latter period, was a guy called Greg Hughes. He was quite into military stuff. And he came up with the special team range, which was like military outfits, but based about 20 to 30 years in the future.
Yeah.
And the sort of thing you see now with soldiers, with things around their elbows and on their knees, to protect them, and helmets that come right down with
little eyepieces and things.
Red things and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So Greg did some fantastic drawings of those. And we presented those to marketing, and they, said, "Oh, great, let's do that." So then we had to sort of model everything, and we had a dress design department with girls that did dress design at college. When I first joined Palitoy, dolls were big, really big, and they were churning out dolls' dresses all throughout the year because mail order was big then. So they'd want an Easter range, a summer range, an autumn range. So they were churning out dolls and dolls and dolls. Of course, when they got onto Tressie, they were doing it in more miniature.
Yeah.
So they sort of learnt on Tressie to do the Action Man outfits, to sew them up.
Awesome. Anything
like that, we'd have to involve them on the actual fabric side of it.
Yeah.
So it was a real team effort, It was a real team effort.
That's fantastic. Let's move into another kind of big part of Palitoy, which was the Star Wars brand. Kenner had it in the US, but Palitoy were kind of tasked with distributing and so on in the UK and Europe. So it was a huge element of the success of Palitoy in the late 70s, early 80s. Take us through your involvement with the brand, and was it something you enjoyed working on?
We didn't do a lot really, but the first thing I knew about Star Wars, well, you'd heard about this film that was out in America. It hadn't come out in the UK, had it?
No.
You heard about this film that had taken everything by storm, and of course before that, science fiction films were really B movies.
Yeah.
You know, and they were a bit hammy, weren't they?
They were awful.
Yeah, I was watching one on the television the other day. Oh, it's absolutely abysmal. Anyway, and this was the problem because nobody wanted to take it because there was $6 Million Man, which had about 24 episodes or something.
Yeah.
Now, that's great. You can go with that and make a toy of it because you've got 24 episodes to keep it going. But with a film, if the film bombs out,
yeah,
you know, you're stuck with toys on the shelf. And now everybody's a bit nervous about going for it. But of course, Bernie Loomis, who was the president of Kenner, he could see it. He could see toys. He had this, what's the word he had? Toyetic.
Yeah.
That was his word.
Yeah.
And he went to see Star Wars and he said, and he looked, toyetic. And of course, they signed that contract about a month before the film came out in America, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they had to tool everything up, and they couldn't get out for Christmas. So
they got that kind of like IOU kind of thing, didn't they?
Yeah, they sold empty boxes. Yeah, Action Man deserters.
Amazing.
And of course, the first thing I heard about it, really, that we were getting involved, was when Jeff Maisie was put in charge of on the marketing side of Star Wars. Gave me some tickets to go and see a special preview in London, and I went down to see that and I got early because I wanted to get the best seat in the house, sort of, you know, 2/3 back in the middle, get the surround sound and everything.
Were you excited, by the way?
Oh yeah, it was. And when that spaceship came over, you know, after that, God, it blew me mind.
Brilliant.
And then shortly after that, Bill Pugh, who was then at the time was in Hong Kong. Yeah. Because he used to go out to Hong Kong. He used to go out to Hong Kong to take all our designs and brief all the factories. And then that was in the sort of springtime. Yeah. But in the autumn time, he used to go out there to make sure things had been done right and check them out. He was out there at the time, and he contacted me from Hong Kong, and he said, "I want you to go to America." So there was himself and Roger went to Kenner. Yeah. Roger was our tooling manager, and we went to Kenner. 2 other guys went to Parker. Yeah. But we went to Kenner, and we saw the first shots coming off the mold, off the molding, you know, off the tools. Yeah. Of the X-wing and the TIE Fighter and the Land Speeder.
Amazing.
And I took photographs of Roger holding the TIE Fighter with Roger in the background, and I didn't get him to take one of me.
Oh no!
I was really upset about that because now I've got this photograph of Roger holding it, nothing with me on.
Oh, mate.
Anyway, so when we got back, they sent over the tooling patterns. They call them duplicating aids. Yeah. We sent them over, and then Roger went off to get the tools made for those 3 vehicles.
Amazing. I mean, after watching the film, did you fully expect it to be a massive, massive hit? Did you think at that point that this is going to be, you know, years down the line, there's going to be like 9 film, more than that now?
No, I didn't think that at all. I thought it was a one-off film.
Did you not expect any sequels or anything to come off it?
It didn't really occur to me, actually. No, that wasn't the sort of thing that was happening in films in those days.
No.
They were one-offs. Yeah. But now you've got that with Star Wars. You've got it with Indiana Jones, haven't you? And you've got it with Jurassic Park. And, well, they're all doing it now, aren't they?
Yeah. It's got to be franchise worthy now, hasn't it? Yeah, you can't just have one movie. It's got to span 11 films like the Avengers.
But it's because they make more money out of the toys than they do out of the films. Yeah. I mean, George Lucas made more money out of his franchising.
Oh my God.
He got the rights to the franchise, didn't he? Yeah. That's what he demanded. So he's made more money out of franchising than he has out of the films.
He certainly saw the potential.
He did, didn't he?
He certainly did. Okay, so you famously worked on the Death Star playset, and when we were walking around,
May the toys
were with you, and we were straight as you walk in a glass case, you've got the Death Star playset. So we took some pictures and I'll flash them up on screen, obviously. You worked on that famously, and we had a good chat about all of the different things you were involved with, and it was a really fun day. How did the idea, though, of a cardboard playset come about, and how much fun was that to develop?
Well, this is the thing, because I always thought that we developed that from scratch. And Brian Turner, who was tasked to see Dave Barnacle, who's the artist. Dave Barnacle was a freelance, or he had his own company rather in Leicester, the design company, and Brian used to go and see him with things and what have you. But I always thought, and Brian always thought, and he kept telling me, yes, it was me, that we sent him there to tell Dave, or brief Dave, on to do the Star Wars Death Star.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen like that, I've heard recently, and it's 40 years ago this is, don't forget.
Yeah. How
it happened was that there was an agency in London that we dealt through to get to 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
So we had to go through this agency to get things approved. They sent a mock-up of this Death Star to us.
Oh, right.
And it was fairly crude, and it wasn't a sort of thing you could manufacture properly.
Right.
The way it was constructed wasn't easy for the kids to put together.
Yeah.
So we had to redesign it all, the physical aspects of it.
Sure.
And we put in, one thing it didn't have in was, say, the trash compactor.
Right.
So we added that in. It had a circular piece of card on the top with just one little cannon sort of glued to it.
Yeah.
So we designed that sort of cockpit with the two cannons on the top.
Got you.
And there was other things. That corridor piece that goes across.
Yes.
With the cut-out windows.
Yeah.
That was very difficult to construct and put together.
Yeah.
So we made it simpler.
Was the mock-up in card when you got it, or was that?
Yeah. It was in card, but it was sort of glued together. It wasn't. You couldn't take it apart and put it back together again.
Sure.
So what we did, we redesigned it. We designed those plastic clips so you could clip it, to the base and you can take it apart. We designed the little chute that went into the trash compactor. We put in, if you look at the artwork on the walls,
yes,
it's like corridors going away.
Yeah. Kind of give it that kind of sense of depth and stuff like that.
Yeah, sense of depth, 3D and so forth. We also added on things like a few stormtroopers here and there printed on the card.
Yeah.
Because if the kid bought one, he's just got Luke and Han Solo, perhaps, and you've got no stormtroopers.
Yeah.
At least he's got some stormtroopers printed there he can play with,
Yeah.
So it's all completely redesigned in that way. And Brian come up with this idea, the way it constructs, you've got this central column down the middle, haven't you?
Yes.
I don't know what it's called in the film, but it's the sort of powerhouse of the Death Star.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it's been given a name at some point.
Yeah, it's got a name. But he put the mirror thing on the bottom, so when you look down, it looks like it's going down to infinity sort of thing.
Yeah.
Things like that, So what we had to do then is send it back to the agency for them to get it approval from the States so they could approve it.
Yeah.
What happened then is they provided us with the finished artwork. Now that finished artwork was then, Brian then took to Dave Barnacle, our graphic artist in Leicester.
Right.
Who then, he copied that artwork and printed it loads off, and we made up samples.
I see, okay.
So with the prints that were coming off, they were stuck onto card. Yeah. And we made samples that went to photography, Toy Fair, and everywhere.
I see, okay.
So that's the process. So the original concept wasn't Palitoy's, it was this agency.
This agency, okay. So do we know the person involved in that, or is that kind of lost information now?
I don't know, no. I don't know. I think the company still exists.
That's cool. That might be good for some digging, if it hasn't already been dug up at some point down the line. I'll have to ask any one of the Star Wars guys that I'm good friends with, including Dave Tree. Okay, so recently as well, kind of in relation to this, Hasbro have released a few cardboard-style playsets, kind of modern
you told
ones.
Me that. I tried to look for some.
Yeah, there was a Kessel set that came out. I was at Boss Fight about a week or so ago. They say hi, by the way. And we were basically, I was with Andrew Franks, and we were, I think, in a Target, and he saw this Kessel set, kind of Star Wars 4-inch action figure cardboard kind of play set. So he bought that, and we basically kind of had a play around with it on the desk in Boss Fight HQ, built it all up and everything, and it's very reminiscent of the kind of the Death Star, the Action Force HQ, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. It's definitely got that kind of vibe and that kind of that kind of feeling towards it. I mean, how does that feel to have inspired that sort of design many years later? And I know, obviously, having said that it wasn't Palitoy's original design, but obviously you guys developed it, brought it out, and it was a successful play set. I mean, it just shows, doesn't it, like just that style of build, even if it's card. It has got like legs in its kind of in its development, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, it certainly has. I mean, the American version we didn't really like very much because it didn't look like a Death Star.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like it's like as if you'd taken a segment of an orange and cut it in half and
Yeah.
stood it on that's obviously we wanted to make it more like a Death Star.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
agency did. So we thought you get two of them and stick one underneath, you've got the full Death Star, haven't you?
I never thought of that.
If you get the figures to stand, but underneath, you'd have to glue them on, wouldn't you?
I think that needs to be done as a custom now. I have to buy two of those and sort that out.
Yeah, but look at the price of them now.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I'll have to get a mint in sealed box one just to make sure I've got a nice.
I've just been to that Echo Base convention.
Yes.
I gave my Palitoy talk there and talked about Death Star and so forth.
Yeah.
And one of the guys there, he's done a little miniature one. Have you seen that?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, he's done a little miniature one.
Oh, that's awesome! Of the cardboard one, the
yeah, it's just you buy it in a sheet and you just push them out.
Oh, that's
big
so
sheets of cardboard,
cute.
push them out and you build it up and it's a little mini Death Star.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, you've got to admit, like, some of the fan community around these things are quite remarkable. I mean, the amount of amazing customs and things that exist out there.
Your old wife.
Oh yeah, there you go. There's a fantastic example.
Stuff she's been doing.
Oh, just amazing. I mean, she's working on a Baron Ironblood helmet at the moment, so which she's been posting, kind of works in progress. It's
we'll
awesome.
Talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, we will. So let's in that case, we are the full force. So let's move on to the most appropriate element of this interview. We are an Action Force podcast traditionally. Take us through the inception of Action Force. How did that come about, please?
Star Wars.
Yes.
Obviously, Star Wars set a different mode of playing, really, and marketing and everything. I mean, Action Man was a toy that you really play in the garden. You build dens, don't you? And
yes.
You throw bricks at him and this, that, and the other. But when you get down to the 3 3/4 inch size, it's a toy really you play with indoors in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And of course, when Star Wars came out, it did affect Action Man. I mean, it was all space. When Star Wars came out, everybody wanted everything space, so we had to design what we called the Space Rangers for Action Man.
Great line, by the way.
And Captain Zargon, which looked a bit black like somebody else.
Yeah, it was all very. It had those tones of Star Wars, didn't it? Absolutely.
Yeah, Captain Zargon. So bit Flash Gordon-y as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The real problem was the size.
Yeah.
Action Man was struggling because of the size. I mean, you get a lot of Star Wars figures for your Action Man, don't you?
Yeah.
As regards plastics and so forth. So what happened was marketing realised that they needed to support the Action Man line a bit.
Yeah.
So they decided to go for a mini 3 3/4 inch Action Man.
Yeah.
So Mike Taylor, who was the marketing manager at the time on Action Man, he came over to the office and said, Bob, we're going to go to same as Star Wars. You've got to remember, we were doing Action Man and Star Wars in the same range of toys.
Yeah.
So they were competing against each other. So that was the rationale behind it all. Let's do a Star Wars size Action Man.
Yeah.
So we didn't have time to do much development, so we had to get out quick. So we copied the same 5-point articulation as Star Wars, because that was proven,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had to go to a sculptor in London. Now, what marketing wanted for this range of figures, they wanted the 12 best Action Man outfits.
Yeah.
So the German Stormtrooper, the Marine, and that sort of.
Yeah.
I did some sketches, but while I was doing that, I was also sketching some fantasy things.
Awesome.
The Jarmins.
Oh, okay, yeah.
With these space characters that had taken over Earth, and the Action Man figures were living in the forests and jungles.
Brilliant.
And they were all dressed in green, sort of camouflage. And these Jarmins were aliens dressed in black and red.
Yeah.
And I was doing sketches of that, but they didn't want to go that way. They wanted to just concentrate on Action Man and just copy basically the outfits, the 12 best outfits.
Yeah.
So that was knocked on the head or put it to one side.
I was going to say, there sounds like there's a few things that might return.
Yeah, I put it to one side because there was one or two other ideas as well. So I went down to see this sculptor in London, chap called Ron Cameron.
Yeah.
And he was quite a famous sculptor, actually. He paid a lot of money for some of his big sort of life-size sculptings.
Wow.
His bronzes and so forth.
Yeah.
But he was a great sculptor. And I got him to sculpt up these figures. And from the silicon rubber moulds we took off, we cast resin copies in these moulds. Some of them were metal as well.
Wow.
Sort of like a soft temperature metal that you pour in. And from those, we built up figures and hand-painted them. And those are the ones that went on the display stand at the toy fair.
Okay.
And used in catalogue photography and stuff like that. So that's how it started. Now I said to Mike Taylor, who was the marketing manager, you want us to copy these 12 best Action Man outfits for Action Force? Does that mean we're going to bring the Scorpion tank and the Land Rover down to that same scale? He says, oh no, design some different vehicles.
Wow.
So what happened then was my boss at the time was John Hawkes.
Yes.
He was design director. And he knew this company called Raffle and Pape down in Hertfordshire, somewhere like that. They did some concept sketches of some vehicles. We took those sketches and we developed them into these vehicles. So you got the AF5, AF7, and so forth. So you got these action men, mini action men, with these sort of modern-looking vehicles.
Yeah.
Quite right to me. So that's how it started.
In the background, you had these other ideas that were kind of like bubbling away, and kind of other elements that you wanted to incorporate into the line, but obviously not having that time. You did, however, have that time as the line grew, and then in 83, 84, those years, you were able to start developing completely new sub-teams and all this kind of stuff. How did that come about?
Well, this is because Palitoy was one of the companies in the toy group, the General Mills Toy Group.
Yeah.
The General Mills Toy Group was based in New York. They had overall control over all the different toy companies. And Bob Simpson, who was managing director, coming up to 81, and some of the others, the management, they got wind of what was going to happen. And what was going to happen was they were going to stop development in Europe of any new ideas, but do all the development in the States, and then basically all the companies in Europe would just be distribution companies. They'd have no say over development of new ideas or building up ranges. I mean, Palitoy was marketing toys from people like Tomy in Japan, and other companies like that, which are obviously competitors to other companies in the toy group. Yeah. So they're going to put a stop to that. All the development was going to be done in the States, and marketing would just put whatever toys they were getting into Palitoy boxes, do the TV advertising, comic advertising, promotions and so forth. Yeah. There was no need for development. They got wind of it, so they all up and went. Wow. So Bob Simpson and Les Cook, who was marketing director, one or two others, they went off and started up their own company. So they brought in this new guy called Peter Waterman as managing director, and a totally new marketing team. And the guy who was in charge of Action Man and Action Force was a chap called Andy Lowe. And of course, you come into a company new, you want to put your own stamp on things, don't you? Yeah. So with fantasy really getting bigger then, because this is getting up to the time of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and He-Man as well. Yeah. When does He-Man come out? That came out about then, didn't it?
Around that time, I think it was.
So it was his decision to change Action Man from being like a mini Action Force to being like a mini Action Man, and to go into the fantasy route. Yeah. But the trouble is, they didn't give us much money to develop new ideas and new tooling. Right. So we had to take the figures and take legs off this one, arms off this one, body off this one, and mix them about.
The kit bash.
Recolour them. Yeah. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
A kit bash.
Yeah.
And then we had to develop what this fantasy theme was going to be between us and marketing. And we developed this idea of having 4 Action Force teams and an enemy team. Yeah. It fits similar to my Jarmins.
Exactly,
in the jungle,
Yeah. Well, the red and black was incorporated. The green camouflage was incorporated. Yeah. So
then we started developing the characters and this, that and the other, and building up different combinations of legs and arms. And and of course, because we had these vehicles, which were a bit more modern, we didn't do the Scorpion tank or the Land Rover. Yeah. We did some modern vehicles from Raffle and Pape. They sort of lended themselves to this. Yeah. So by messing those about a bit and recolouring them, we had some modern sort of looking vehicles. Yeah. And there was a lot of use of kind of Star Wars parts in and around the line, wasn't there? A lot of kind of like pieces end up from like
like the radar dish ends up on the bottom of the
that's right,
satellite defense and stuff like that. And there's so many of those cute little elements kind of that are like sprinkled in and around the Action Force. I love that there's that connection with the two brands, you know.
That's our model maker, his name was Kevin Heath.
Yeah.
We'd do a sketch like for that satellite defense thing, you know, or whatever, and say to him, "There it is, get it done," and he'll go nick a bit off there, nick a bit off there, stick it on.
I love that. And was it the Cosmic Cruiser had the guns from something, or like the engine or something from something else, and so on and so forth? There was something on that, wasn't there, that was utilised from another piece?
Probably was, I can't remember.
It's amazing. I do love all those things. We did an episode years ago where we looked, I think it was when The Force Awakens came out, and we did like a crossover Star Wars Action Force episode, and we talked about the HQ and the fact that you had the Death Star and then the HQ of like a similar kind of design. And again, that's another kind of, I suppose, it lends itself nicely to Star Wars, that HQ, because of the similarities, and that it's a cardboard set. You know, you've got a similar way of it. If its kind of design is very similar, even though it's not exactly the same. Take us through the development of that HQ, for example. I mean, was obviously the Death Star was on your mind when that was being done, right?
Well, yeah, only in the sense that let's do a card version for the HQ, because they wouldn't give us any money for new tooling.
I suppose cost was a massive thing to do with it, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that was completely my design. That's
a beauty as well. I love how the top folds out into
that's totally me. Yeah. And I thought, I'm going to design this because once you put this thing up and you've got this helicopter pad on the top, you could sit on that. And I thought, well, I'm going to test this. I'm going to sit on it.
No way.
Because the kid's going to sit on that, and it took my weight. So
amazing. But, you know, I've never tested that theory. I'm still not going to test that theory, I'm glad that is the case.
It took my weight.
Wow, that's one hell of a test. I'd be like seeing what else could film there.
I got Dave Barnacle in with this construction and the ideas of what I wanted, and got him to do all the artwork.
Amazing, yeah, and that's a beauty. That really is a gorgeous HQ. So I do want to get on to some of the other things you designed in the range as well, and obviously some of the more kind of out there concepts like Kraken and Skeletron.
Well, yeah.
I mean, what was going through your mind with these particular designs? Was Kraken like
nightmares? I think.
It would appear so, but I mean, were you kind of taking inspiration from kind of monster movies with those kind of guys, like especially with Kraken?
Well, this is the third year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of Action Force.
Yeah.
First year was Action Man miniatures, basically. Second year we changed it into the fantasy.
Yeah.
They didn't give us much money for tooling. The second year, because it was doing so well, they gave us some money.
Yeah.
To make some new ideas and new figures, actually proper new figures rather than changing arms and legs and heads.
Yeah.
So I started sketching different alien type characters that I thought could fit into the alien, the baddie team, the Baron Ironblood team.
Yeah.
And the Kraken. I thought the Kraken because I like science fiction. I used to read John Wyndham books, and one of his books, the Kraken Wakes.
Yeah.
Where these aliens have been living they came to Earth and they were living under the oceans.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they started coming out and attacking people and what have you. And I thought, Kraken, that's a good name, underwater. He's got to be some sort of reptilian. I did some sketches and got Ron to sculpt this reptilian character up.
It's up there as one of my favourite Red Shadows characters, I think. There are a few, but with the Kraken is just so like, I would say, like, criminally underused as well. I mean, like, and how did kind of collaboration with Battle Action Force work? Were you ever in contact with the guys at the comic, or was it a case of them just using what you're doing in the toy line? They're just kind of creating on their own elsewhere for the comic.
Yeah, I had no contact at all with the comic people, but the marketing guys would deal with them. And I think they give them fairly free range of what to do. Yeah. Because some of the things they put into comics, are not quite right, are they, compared to what we did?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, did you read any of that stuff back then?
I had a copy sent to me every week.
Oh, nice.
And it went in a box, and I've never even looked at them.
Oh, no.
I've got over a year's supply all piled up.
Oh,
These
mate.
comics, they haven't been opened. I think there's one with a figure in. I haven't never opened it.
Okay, I'll be in contact with you after the show to see if I can procure those off you. No, that's amazing, Bob.
As designers, we didn't have any involvement in that.
That's a shame. I know obviously it was slightly different kind of in over at Hasbro. Obviously, Larry Hama was kind of creating these characters or breathing life into the characters that Hasbro were creating. And there was, I suppose, I think there was more of a collaboration there, wasn't there, in terms of what that Hasbro wanted and what, you know, Larry was coming up with and so on and so forth. But I kind of see you sometimes as you're almost like in a way, you're like the Larry Hama of the Palitoy era. But it's a different comparison because obviously you're in the toy company kind of area, like, you know, developing the toys, so there's a slightly different kind of like situation going on there. And also like the fact that the Action Force comic didn't last as long as like the G.I. Joe one, but again, you know, your designs kind of go, I don't know, they to this day are some of the most sought after kind of products. And let's talk. I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss the Robo Skull. I mean, let's get into that because obviously I have a connection with it for many different reasons. Obviously, my wife created that 12-inch scale version. It's probably why we're married.
It's my fault.
It's your fault, and I'm blaming you. And obviously, that we had a lovely day in Leicester where we all met up, and she brought her you know, the Robo Skull that she created, and we had that.
That was amazing.
I mean, how does that feel as well, before we get into the design? How does that feel, having that kind of, you know, like, not just that, but you look at Ben Conway's Chromo Skull, as I like to call it.
Oh yeah,
that's incredible. I mean, people have taken, you know, the Lego version that was done recently. I apologise for not knowing the name. Someone did I do actually know who did it, but I've forgotten their name. I apologise.
Is that the real Lego parts?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. It was
I've seen it. I've got a picture. I took the picture off the website.
I think it was one of Dave's shows. I think when like Farthest From or something along those lines, and the guy had it there, and it was absolutely superb. So I apologise for not knowing the name. You can comment in the box below, and I'll make a note of that in the next episode, just so people know. But it's fantastic. I mean, how does that feel that people are still to this day like loving what you've done so much that they want to do all these other different things with it?
Well, it's brilliant, isn't it? There's another one I saw, was the AT-AT.
Oh, blimey, yeah, that is incredible. Like the Red Shadows AT-AT with like the Robo Skull head and the Robo Skull like kind of little fighter landing pad. Oh my god, that's next level. Yeah, I
think it's brilliant. I mean, there's so much creativity out there with these guys.
Yeah,
more creativity than I had, I think.
Well, you're the reason for that creativity. So don't sell yourself short. Take us through the Robo Skull design. I mean, there's an amazing kind of video that Analog Tony did not too long ago that you were on, in actual fact, that kind of talks.
Yeah, I helped him out with that.
I mean, that is a brilliant little documentary, and a big shout out to Analog Toys. They do amazing work. Tony does amazing work. I mean, take us through the development of this amazing toy.
Well, we got some money to spend.
Yay!
We got some money to spend. So I thought this enemy team needs something a bit special in their range of vehicles, and I started sketching out. Of course, their emblem was a skull and crossbones.
Yeah,
they were sort of like pirates, weren't they?
Yeah,
ravaging around the world and trying to take over. So I sat down with blank white bits of paper, sketching up different vehicles with skulls on.
Amazing.
Tracked vehicles, and ones with skis on, and all sorts of different things. And flying vehicles, and then I started doing this one with this, just basically the skull with sort of, people say it's just a TIE fighter, a copy of a TIE fighter, but it never went through my mind, but I suppose subconsciously it was.
You can only really say that it's just because it's got the circular element in the middle and the two wings, but I mean that's as far as it goes, really.
Yeah. So I started sketching this up, and the ideas, and I thought these wings need to turn so that you can vertically take off, and then they spin round so you can speed up through the atmosphere.
Brilliant,
go out into space, and it needs plenty of motors on it, and engines, and plenty of weaponry. and I started developing it, and I in sketch form, just rough sketches, really rough sketches. And I thought I need to get into this model. I got to model this, it needs modelling. So I modelled up with some clay. I modelled up a skull and some bits of plastic, made up with some wings, and stuck them onto the side of the clay skull. And then I thought it needs a pilot. It needs a pilot. And I said, well, if it's a flying skull, it needs a skeleton inside, a robotic skeleton.
Incredible.
So I got Ron Cameron I did some sketches and did Ron Cameron. I said, do this skeleton robot type thing with motors on his legs, servos or things like that. Make him look a bit robotic. So he did that. And then that was presented to the new products committee, which is marketing, managing director, and design, my boss and me, and it was on the table, and they said, "Oh, crikey, yeah, we've got to do that." I said, "This is the pilot." And this pilot's called Robo Skull. That vehicle's, I can't remember what I called it, Skull Fighter or something.
Yeah.
But this is the pilot, Robo Skull. And they said, no, that vehicle's Robo Skull. They said, we're doing as a special. But we need a different pilot to go inside. And so I had to go away, and I sculpted up the Red Wolf.
Yeah.
Now, there's a bit of subliminal sort of stuff going on there because he's a bit similar to the TIE fighter pilot.
Yeah.
But I designed the mask to look sort of like a wolf.
Yeah, with the long nose type thing.
Yeah, long nose. So I sculpted that.
Do you know, I've never, ever, that's never dawned on me until you just mentioned it then. That's amazing.
It's supposed to be look wolf-like.
Isn't that ridiculous? What is wrong with me? I'm even looking at him now and going, yeah, I can see it. What is wrong with me? Genius.
So he's called Red Wolf. I didn't take the TIE fighter pilot and sort of sculpt the one I wanted. I sculpted it how I wanted it, but as subliminally, I must have put in some bits that.
This is still very unique, if you ask me.
No, he's a wolf.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's not unique at all. It's a wolf. I suppose the tubes, the pipes, are about the only thing that I would kind of like. Anything like the type up, but I just love him. It's an amazing figure.
Anyway, that's how that happened. And then of course they wanted it out for Toy Fair. I must have come up with this in the spring sometime. Of '83.
Right.
And they wanted it out for Toy Fair in a physical form. We're never going to get the tooling made by then. So I had to go and see a company called Rayleigh Technical Design, who had model makers and draftsmen. And I took my mock-up thing, the clay and the wings.
Yeah.
Before I went to see them, I started drawing up how I wanted it. And I wanted it to have a pilot in the front, looking at a front window, and a rear gunner. And I thought, we've got to get some play value out of this.
Yeah.
What's another character in there somewhere? And I thought of this idea of having this sort of capture thing underneath where it was like a brainwashing unit.
Yeah.
If you captured an Action Force figure, you stuck him in there, you brainwashed him and turned him into a red shadow or something.
I love that. That's just so much fun.
To do that, I had to do some elevation sketches with the figures to get the size.
Yeah.
So the pilot was standing at the front, the chappie's sitting at the back, and the guy's laying down underneath. And then I sketched around that to get the size of the actual skull. And then I started doing some exploded view drawings of how it should go together.
Yeah.
So how the wings would fit on and turn and all that business.
You basically did all their work for them, didn't you? It's brilliant.
Well, I did all that, and then I went to them with these sketches and outline drawings and cutaways, and saw their draftsmen, and they started drafting up all the... Oh, that's another thing. I went down to see Ron and said, can you sculpt up this skull that goes on the front?
Yeah.
So he sculpted up the skull bit on the front. And I gave that to Rayleigh Technical Design, and they took castings off to make resins, to make the prototype.
Awesome. It's amazing how many hands are involved in just creating, that kind of thing. I know, obviously, your particular involvement there is the 90% or whatever, but the fact that you've got so many, then another guy sculpts the skull, and then the other guys are developing the other elements and stuff. And I mean, and that actual what they came up with in terms of the mechanisms and everything were pretty amazing when you think about it, weren't they?
That's how it worked. They were the draftsmen were drawing up the parts, passing them over to a model maker who make the model of that particular part.
Yeah.
I was modifying things while they were doing that and adding things and changing things.
But they love that.
It's not the sort of way you want to work on a toy. Really, you want to design it, make a prototype, take that prototype apart, and then do patterns or drawings or what for the tool maker.
Yeah.
But I was trying to do everything together at the same time.
Yeah. I suppose that's with the time crunch. It was quite.
It was the time crunch.
Yeah.
And I was left to it.
Yeah.
They let me do it. I just carried on doing it. And when it all came together, we had a prototype made, which was used for photography, and went to the toy fair. And then the tooling started for all the components.
Wow. And then when do you get that back in hand? And did you look at it and go, okay, this is something special?
Well, when I saw the prototype, I thought, that's just right.
Yeah. Was it everything you'd kind of imagined it would be?
Yeah, it was just right. I mean, there's some things, like there's two little exhaust things on the back of the Robo Skull.
Yeah.
I think they're tops of pens or something, aren't they? You're talking about taking things to Star Wars.
They could be. Yeah, just from what was on the desk at the time.
Yeah, you know those big marker pens.
Yeah.
They look like those that they used. I wanted the wings to be sort of soaring like a medieval cathedral.
Yes.
That sort of thrusting up look.
Yeah.
With the on the columns when you go in a cathedral, there's great big pediments at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I wanted and they look as though they're stuck to the ground.
Yeah.
And I wanted that to, when it's in the standing position, to look as though it's solid on the ground.
Yeah. The wings are really beautiful. There's definitely an aesthetic there of that medieval cathedral. It's incredible. I'm kind of talking to you and looking at it at the same time. Yeah, I would get it, but it's surrounded by so much other stuff that it would just cause so much damage. But yeah, again, like that is the cathedral element is a great. And again, as you say, when you look at those kind of cathedrals as well, they're up in the sky. They almost feel like they're soaring through the sky. So it's a perfect kind of feel for what this is. But
they're still sort of light.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted the wings to be, see-through.
Yeah.
Sort of see-through, letting the light through.
Yeah, which is a cool aspect of it as well. That, again, if you don't really study it, if you don't look at it in depth and detail, there are some things that you'll miss. And I think the kind of the opaque transparency kind of effect on the wings is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily realise at first. And when you actually have one in hand, you can and put it up to the light. It's like, wow, that's really cool.
It's like a stained glass window,
Yes, absolutely. How did the Robo Skull kind of perform in toy aisles and stuff? I mean, with the sales there with its first release.
Well, it stayed in the range when we were made redundant in 1984.
Yeah,
and then it sort of morphed into G.I. Joe after that. Didn't it?
Yeah. They released the second one with the Wild Weasel figure as Red Wolf, yeah. I
think the year after we left, it was still in the range. That and the Sea Lion and the Triad. Yeah. Those three were still in the range.
So they must have been high selling then.
Well, they might have been selling well, or they couldn't sell them and they had to get rid of them.
Yeah, because that was another thing, wasn't it? Because I did feel like there was some talk of there being like a lot of surplus of the Robo Skull, and that they carried it over into the next line because of that. But I've never really been able to find out what the actual numbers were.
It was probably too expensive.
If that was the case, it's funny how nowadays the Robo Skull is one of the most sought after pieces in like a G.I. Joe fans kind of collection, because I know so many Joe fans, like Americans, people that didn't have that for, kind of South Americans or what have you, who absolutely fell in love with Action Force when they found out about it. And the Robo Skull is, I think, one of the main vehicles that does that to people. It's like, I don't know, it's one of those vehicles that it's so iconic that they have to have it, and it's become really sought after and really expensive on the secondary market. So if it didn't capture the imagination back then, it certainly has caught it now.
Well, we have to thank Larry Harmer for that, because he put it in the comic, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was amazed when I saw that comic and I saw Robo Skull flying around in the comic.
It's a brilliant story as well. Yeah,
Larry, I said.
Well, he's been throwing red shadows like in quite a lot of the comics. So it was in that two-parter when I think they first started bringing the red shadows in, and then since then they've been in and around. The Robo Skulls appeared again, had a battle with Bomb Strike. The red shadows have appeared loads.
It's been again.
Yeah, it's been been loads. I'll send you the screenshots or what have you of of its other appearances. There are so many, and obviously Black Mage has been involved throughout the run. I get the feeling that, because obviously Baron Ironblood was used for First Strike, which was the big crossover event that happened a year or so ago now. And I think because it was used because he was used in that, Larry wasn't able to use Baron Ironblood in A Real American Hero. But I get the feeling that we will be seeing Baron Ironblood soon in A Real American Hero. I just have a feeling that there's going to be a big reveal, and he's going to be like the next big kind of bad guy, because you've had Black Major kind of operating a lot. Red Laser's been in it loads, and Red Jackal hasn't been, because obviously Destro is, I suppose, looks exactly the same. So we'll see how that pans out, or how he uses those characters. But yeah, I mean, it's being used like, I would say semi-regularly now, which is amazing. How do you feel about that?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, keep it going. I mean, we've even had Baron Ironblood standing for Parliament.
Oh, that was brilliant, wasn't it? Lord Buckethead. I've shared, anytime that story's come up, I've shared that on our page so many times. Okay, well, I mean, you mentioned it a second ago, and that was the Palitoy going under kind of situation. That must have been quite a shock. I mean, were you aware that the company was going that way beforehand, or was it kind of sprung on you?
Well, yeah, you could see what was happening. I mean, as I said, Bob Simpson and management got out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Because they understood what was going on. We were sort of carrying on with Action Man and Action Force, basically. There was nothing else really being designed.
Yeah.
So we could see something was happening. And then we decided to redesign Action Man and come up with 3 new vehicles, and we got this company Rafa and Pate to come up with these, but there was no way of those going to be tooled up and produced. So they were stopped by Toy Group in New York when we tried to get money off them for doing it. So at the Toy Fair in '84, before that we rehashed Action Man. We rehashed all the existing, like the helicopter and the Scorpion tank and those, in different camouflage type of thing. So there wasn't the German Stormtrooper and the this, that and the other. There was just this army team in one sort of bit like the special team. Yeah. And we rehashed the vehicles in the same colorway.
Yeah.
I tried to save Action Man by doing that and put him. He went to Toy Fair, but after Toy Fair that was stopped as well. And then we heard that Action Man was no more.
Aww.
Without having Action Man, and they got G.I. Joe to come into Action Force, so there was no development after Robo Skull and them. We could see it was happening, so we were made redundant in sort of about 1st of August, I think, of that year, '84. And then it became, the year after that, it became Kenner Parker.
I know it's a bit of a depressing thing to talk about, but so let's kind of make it more fun. Let's talk about Special Weapons Team quickly, because that's something that I think, is another massive thing that we need to discuss. Take us through the development on that. Was that one of those things where you guys were just thinking, well, let's do, again, the budget's low, let's do some kind of repaints and get a different team out there?
They came out because when we were changing Action Force from Mini Action Man to Fantasy, we came up with lots and lots of different team colourways. Yeah. And that was just one of them. I think the marketing just wanted 4 teams. Yeah. When it came to it. So we came down with the SAS, which is like a covert team. Yeah. The basic military team, which was the Z Force. Yeah. They wanted an underwater team, which was the Q Force. Yeah. And they wanted a space team, which was the space team. So all the other different designs and colourways of different groups that we came up with were pushed aside, and that was one of them. That's probably the most developed one of the others.
Yeah. I've seen so many kind of, prototypes of ideas that were going to be introduced. But yeah, you're right. The Special Weapons Team seems to be the one that's kind of most fully visualised. There was a character in there called Boffin.
Boffin, yeah.
Was that like an attempt, Bob, to get you as an action figure? Because there seems to be a very strong visual connection there with yourself. Was that at all in the idea?
Well, it's a funny story, this, but just after I left college, I had a girlfriend who used to call me Buff, like Boff, actually, but it's a German name. There's an umlaut on the O. Right. 2 little dots on the O. Yeah. It's pronounced Buff. Buff. But it looks like Boff.
I'm going to call you that from now on.
And if you noticed on the Robo Skull blueprint thing, yes, on it says person who drew that was Buff Brechin.
Oh, I've never noticed that. I haven't. I'm gonna have to check that out.
I put that on there, Buff Brechin.
Amazing.
So I think the Boffin maybe came from that.
Yeah.
Obviously, with it being a Special Weapons Team, you had to have a Boffin, didn't you? Like in
James Bond. Yeah, exactly.
Is it M? Is it? Is the boffin?
Yeah, Q, I want to say.
Q.
Yeah, Q-Force.
Q came from aqua. I took the word aqua and I just took the Q out to make that symbol.
Nice. Again, never dawned on me. So I feel like the worst Action Force fan alive right now. So with the Special Weapons Force, you had Boffin, who we would have, I suppose, because also you not only did you have figures, but you also had like vehicles and stuff that kind of went along with it. Now, I just assumed that Bombardier, being the Flash repaint, for him being a G.I. Joe figure, he would have been whoever the vehicle was, he'd have been the vehicle driver, as that was the case with some of the other situations. Yeah. And so I kind of paired him up with the Panther version 2, which was amazing in that deco. He also had Fixer, who was, again, like I kind of paired up with the mobile missile system for some reason. I'm not sure if that was going to be the case, but I just felt like he looked the most likely to be with that mobile missile system. And Lightning, who was a gunner, I just expected him to be with the attack cannon version 2 as well. And obviously with the sniper being a sniper, I thought he was like a very standalone type figure and probably would have been just you know without that. Was that the case? Was that the idea behind it? Would that have been the lineup, or is that far too depthy?
I don't think they had names. Who came up with these? I don't think we came up with these names.
When Dave found them in the depths of the museum, Bombardier was written on one, Boffin obviously written on another, but then Fixer, Lightning and Sniper were also written on them. And they had things like I think Fixer had experimental engineering written on his. Lightning had gunner and Sniper had rifleman. And it's taken me a number of not years, but it's taken me a while to work out who was who in that kind of thing. But it's on Blood for the Baron as well. There's a lot of kind of information on Special Weapons Team. Again, like I know it's probably a long time ago to even think about that. Was the idea to kind of pair them up with those vehicles as well, some of them?
I can't remember, Chris. I mean, once we'd settled on the 4 teams, those other teams sort of pushed aside. You forgot about them. So it's a bit difficult, as you say, a long time ago. Yeah.
Is it safe for me to say that Boffin's real name was Robert Brechin, though? And his birthplace was Oxford?
Is that what you want to say?
I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make Boffin is going to be, from now on, officially Bob Brechin from Oxford. Special Weapons Research and Development is your primary, and your secondary is Special Weapons Design. And everything else has been redacted because it's far too classified for anyone to know. So Special Weapons Team, I'm really sad that never saw the light of day, honestly, because it's an amazing looking little team.
It looked quite good, didn't it? Have you seen that? There was a sort of a brown sort of team as well. Brownie sort of colour.
Yes, I have. Yes.
That was just another one that got put aside. It never got really developed, I don't think, that one.
Well, okay, so with Palitoy coming to an end, let's talk. It's sad, but we have to talk about it. What did you do afterwards? What was life after Palitoy like for yourself?
Within about two months or so, I got a job with Spears Games down in Enfield Way. Yeah. I had a job there as their design manager, and they wanted me to move down from leafy Leicestershire to horrible North London and pay a fortune for a house.
Hell no.
And I was looking around for houses, and to sell the house I was in, I'd get about a 1-bedroom flat, Ugh. I didn't fancy that, so I stuck it out for about 6 months, and I kept having estate agents send houses to me on my desk in the office, just to look as though I was looking, but I wasn't really. And then I decided to leave. Yeah. And I'd worked right through the flipping winter with them. I was travelling down on a Monday morning and coming back on a Friday evening. Ugh. What really did it was the fact that I was leaving dead early in the morning on a Monday. Yeah. Getting into the office quite early. Working. Because I had nowhere to go. I was living out of a hotel to start with in Diggs. Yeah. So I was working up to 7, 8 o'clock at night sometimes on things, and I was clearing off at about 2 or 3 o'clock on a Friday. Yeah. Somebody in the company complained, and I thought, if that's the case, I'm going. So I went. Wow. So I left there, and I started working for MB Toys. Yeah. Remember MB?
Yeah. Milton Bradley.
Yeah, Milton Bradley. Yeah, I was working. They had a place in London, and Do you remember a product called Robotics?
Oh, absolutely. That's our next episode, Bob.
Is it?
That we're doing it. We're doing an episode on robotics. So that's our next main audio episode.
On that as a freelancer.
Oh well, I have to interview for that now. I have to get you on for that episode.
What was his name? The chap who invented that. Have you been in touch with him?
No, I'm about to start the research on that, but no, that's something that will.
Well, it was invented by a guy who got made redundant from Matchbox, I think it was.
Oh my goodness!
And he was going freelance, and he went along to MB with his portfolio. He told me that. I don't think I'm giving away any secrets, but I better not say any more. It was his idea.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, well, I'll talk to you afterwards about that, because that would be something that I'd love to try and get hold of.
So there was a team of freelance designers that were working on that, coming up with different ideas for the different sets. I didn't do much on that.
Well, that's cool though. Still, that's very, very cool.
Then I was coming towards the end of that contract.
Yeah. And
Les Cook, who used to be the marketing director at Palitoy, gives me a ring and says, "Do you want a job?" I says, "Yeah, I'd love a job." And he had just been headhunted by a Dutch company called Berman Tetraroda, who had just got into toys like General Mills had got into toys, you know?
Yeah.
They were a big paper manufacturing company.
Okay.
And they wanted to branch out, and they got into toys, and they had different toy companies around Europe. They wanted a marketing and development operation, and they got hold of Les, and he got hold of me, and he got hold of John Hawkes, and he got hold of Brian Turner. And,
that's cool.
And an engineer who did a lot of the engineering on Palitoy toys, a chap called Ken Woolhouse.
Yeah.
And we set up an office just off the M1 near Nottingham.
Amazing.
In an old house, an old country house that had been taken over by a team of architects, turned it into a business centre. So we had offices there. So we spent 4 years doing that. So I was travelling out to Hong Kong, did work in with a Spanish company called Molto, and we brought back Girls World, which is it's like a full-size head on the shoulders.
Yeah.
For girls to do makeup on and hair growing.
Yeah.
Hair longer and stuff like that. And I had to do that and get tools made for that, and then take them out to Italy and get them made in Italy. So I was in Italy a few times on that. So that lasted a few years, and then after that we decided. The Dutch, Berman Tetraroda, they were based in Amsterdam. They wanted out of toys.
Yeah.
It's like General Mills wanted to get rid of toys. So what we did, we bought everything for £1.
Amazing.
So our desks, our computer, printer, so on. And we carried on our own, 3 of us.
That's a good deal.
Of course, the toy industry was, the Americans were buying up all the British toy companies.
Yeah.
At the time. You know, Waddington's went.
Yeah.
Spears went. This, that and the other went. Matchbox went. You know, they're all going. And the big two, Mattel and Hasbro, were sort of gobbling everything up, weren't they?
Yeah.
So we didn't have any customers, basically. So we decided to call it a day. But Brian Turner, he used to be our display manager, as I said earlier on.
Yeah.
He came over to toys because he wanted to get off the road, because he was travelling a lot, being display manager. And he came over, when we were at Palitoy, he came out as a designer. So we went off on our own, just the 2 of us, and Les went on his own. And we started doing other things rather than toys. We're doing point-of-sale stuff and display stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we decided to pack it in.
You were bouncing around quite a lot after Palitoy then.
Yeah, we did a big display for Mattel for Barbie, which we put into Alton Towers.
Oh, wow.
And we were quite cutting edge, really, because it was when LEDs were sort of getting a bit cheaper and stuff. And and this display, Brian and I designed and developed and got made. It had more moving parts on. It was her birthday. Must have been, because it would be her 30th or 40th. It'd be her 40th, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be about 99.
Wow.
And it was a birthday, and we had to have fireworks going off.
Amazing.
With these LEDs and a bit of computer technology.
So you had the kind of flashes and stuff like.
The LEDs were flashing like "Happy Birthday" across this screen behind her.
Amazing.
In Alton Towers, yeah. So that was about the last sort of thing we did together.
Just out of interest, is there any documented evidence of that anywhere, pictures or anything?
I don't know.
I'm gonna see if I can dig something out with that.
It kept breaking down. I know that.
Amazing. Tomorrow's World. Right there.
Yeah,
that's great.
So after that, it's sort of I started getting into Action Man, because I was invited along, and I took Bill Pugh just before he died.
Oh.
Brian came as well, and we went to one of the first conventions in the Tank Museum.
Oh, fantastic.
You know the Tank Museum
Yeah.
down near Dave Tree?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so we went down there for 2 days and, did a bit of a presentation with slides and give a bit of a talk and questions and answers. And so that's how I got into Action Man. And then they all started coming in then saying, come and see us. Come
be on our podcast. I know you've been super busy recently, haven't you? You've been kind of doing a lot of these talks and a lot of these kind of Palitoy related heritage kind of things. Take us through some of those things that you've been doing.
Well, this all started when I got wind of the fact that the Snibston Discovery Museum was going to be closed in COALVILLE.
Yeah.
Now, that was on the site of the old mine, the Snibston mine. And it was given over to the local community, really, to build a museum. And they built this museum. And then through the years, it was very, 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 very popular. And it had a toy section in there. But it didn't really tell the story of Palitoy. It had Palitoy stuff, but it was just toys, basically, dotted about.
Yeah.
I got wind of the museum being closed by the council because of austerity.
Right.
They needed to save money.
Yeah.
Decided they couldn't afford to mend the roof because it was leaking a bit, and they were going to close it.
Oh.
Anyway, there was a group formed called the Friends of Snibston. So I joined it on the toy side,
Yeah.
part of Palitoy. And I was talking to Fiona Ure, who was the curator at the time, about turning this section into the Palitoy story.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're trying to save this museum, but it went to the High Court as a judicial review. Got that far in London. But the council had barrister, top barrister, and we had a small barrister, as it were.
Oh, that's a shame.
They won.
Oh.
Even though the Friends of Snibston had perfectly good ways of saving the museum. They studied it, they worked out ways of doing it with different organisations and so forth, but it's still closed.
Oh.
Since then, the group of people are still carried on.
Yeah.
And now we've got what's called the COALVILLE Heritage Society.
Yeah.
Which used to had a different name, but it's now the COALVILLE Heritage Society. So I've joined with them. So we're the ones that are trying to save the heritage of Palitoy, as well as the rest of COALVILLE, the mine and the other factories and so forth. So what we've done is we've applied for money from the Lottery Heritage Fund.
Yeah.
We have got that money now. Not in our hands yet.
Yeah.
It's coming. And we're going to put on a Palitoy centenary exhibition.
Amazing.
This year.
Amazing.
Because this year is the 100th anniversary of when Alf Pallet started Castleoid in Leicester.
Unreal.
Of course, when the toys got bigger and bigger and bigger and they wanted a name, they called the toys Palitoy.
Yeah.
Pallet.
Amazing. Amazing.
It took 2 years to get that name because they found there was a village in India called Pali.
Okay.
And they had to check out whether there was a toy company in this village in India. So it took them 2 years to get this name. That was back in 1935, 36, 37.
Wow.
So this is the centenary of the founding of Palitoy back in those days. That's Castleoid.
Is the actual date, is that coming up soon? Has it been already?
We haven't figured out what the actual date is.
Oh, okay. So this year is the centenary though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So being the national lottery, you have to do other things, to do with heritage. You have to get the community involved, schools involved, colleges involved. So we're doing all that. What we have been doing, and we started, is recording people's memories on film.
Yeah.
And the first one we'd done was Bob Simpson, who's managing director. He's 89 now.
Yeah.
We went to his house a couple of weeks ago, and I was asking him the questions, and they were filming. And
brilliant.
So there will be a website when it's all finished.
Yeah.
And all these films will be on that website.
Oh, that's amazing.
So any information you want about the history of Palitoy will be on there.
That's great. So you're aiming to get this done before the end of this particular year because of the centenary?
It's going to go over into next year.
Oh, okay.
We're also working with the National Trust because nearby, only half an hour away, in one of the National Trust properties is the Museum of Childhood. Not the one in London. This is up in near Uttoxeter. Yeah. And they're going to work with us as well.
Fantastic.
So you'll probably see a version of the exhibition going in their toy museum there.
That's amazing. I mean, I feel very strongly that these things should be remembered and we should have somewhere, there should be something to kind of commemorate that this happened in history and was, beloved by many, many people. It's just such a shame that these things are so often just wiped off the face of the earth, and there's no...
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing to really there's nothing for later generations to really know or understand. I suppose the documentary side of it is a great way of doing that, because obviously that lasts for, forever pretty much. But to get something like a museum or something, I mean, that is so important. And I've always wanted to see, just as they did the exhibition with the Star Wars exhibition that we kind of both attended, I'd love to see something like that for Action Force and Action Man.
Yeah.
It'd just be amazing. Yeah, that needs to happen big time.
Well, of course, we Leicestershire County Council do a green plaque scheme.
Yes, I did see that happen.
I applied for that for the factory, because a lot of people that live in Coalville, they don't know there used to be a toy factory there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
So this green plaque's now proudly displayed on the end of the factory.
I remember when you guys did that. I remember I remember you applying for it, and there was a little vote going round online, which I voted for. Yeah, and I remember when you were all of you were kind of lined up, like all of the ex-Palitoy staff and everyone that you could find were all kind of, that picture of you guys in front of the old factory building was brilliant.
With the green plaque above.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. That wasn't too long ago, was it? That was only
that'd be last year.
Yeah, it was only last year. It wasn't long ago. I remember, again, sharing that picture.
No, it was the year before last year.
Okay.
Because it was the 80th anniversary of Palitoy starting up in Coalville.
Wow. You've done some amazing things. You've designed some incredible toys. Just one last thing for you, Bob. Is it something that you're really, really proud of what you've done? I mean, is it still something that obviously is still continuing, really, because you're still discussing it now with me on a podcast and doing all these different things? Is this something that fills you with a lot of pride?
Pride doesn't really come into my vocabulary.
Oh.
I enjoyed working on toys.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the freedom we had to do different ideas and come up with different ideas, and to see those come out, in the toy shops, and to see them at the toy fairs. That was a good thrill,
Yeah.
And I'm just so thrilled that people like yourself and other people, and your dear wife Kate, and doing things that I've been working on in the past. So thrilled that so many people, are so thrilled about the toys that we did and that we came up with. It's brilliant. And thanks very much to everybody out there that does that.
Absolutely. And you're welcome, because thank you for all the amazing things you've done for us, including, again, like Action Man, Action Force. I mean, these are kind of toys now that I'll see, and I'll still have urges to buy and consume and enjoy and play with. I'm just gonna go out and say with it, yes, I still may play with toys every now and again. Sue me. But anyway, Bob, thank you so much. I mean, that brings us to the end of the interview. I've really enjoyed chatting with you again. It's been such a pleasure and an honour, not just today, but just to know you, and to have been for you to have been so open in accepting, just to kind of hang out and talk about this stuff. And it's truly an honour, and thank you so much.
Well, next time you're over in England, we'll have to meet up again.
Oh, absolutely. We'll just come round unannounced. No, as if it would be unannounced. You'd see on Instagram or Facebook what we'd be doing. But dude, thank you so much for everything. We really, really appreciate it on the Full Force as well. And and good luck with everything in the future.
The same to you.
Thank you so much. That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome guest, Bob Brechin. See you next time, and as always, Full Force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @The Full Force, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.